Hi, and welcome to another Rigonomicon.com video for rigging. And this one is another rigging basics video. For those of you that are not aware, you can go to the webpage to get all of the other videos that help you rig. It's Rigonomicon.com for those that are watching the YouTube videos. Um, so we're going to be talking about, in particular today, about visuals, and I wasn't sure if I would include that as a basic, but to be honest, it's such an important thing for our rig to be easy to understand, and I figured I'd do. I just have a little chat here and show you some rigs that are traditional in Maya and some tools also that I've developed that make the whole process much easier and more performant in Maya because using I'm just going to bring up the image, like using these kind of controls actually slow down Maya, even though multi-threading is a thing and there's a lot of GPU acceleration these days. In most places, it's still splines, and splines are not the best for Maya to draw. It's actually one of the worst things for you to use, and it's used everywhere. Everybody's drawing, making rigs in Maya with circles and whatever shape they can come up with. So here you have the Morpheus rig. It's got lots of shapes, and I'm gonna at the end of this video, I'm gonna show you an alternative to using splines. But for the most part, we're gonna see that all of these rigs, like this well-known rig, has circles for basically the FK for the most part. There's a bit of a visual language, so you know that this is a pull vector for the IK. That basically the direction of the knee as you move the foot controls. It will have the knee constantly pointing towards that object, so it's a little ball with a line, and that's good visual language. You have these little arrow objects. Usually, they have parameters of their own. When you click on them, you have options in the channel box to turn on IK or lift off the ball of the foot, that kind of stuff. You have targets for eyes. It's pretty straightforward here. Like you can really tell what's what, and the hand controls will have their own values that are for changing fingers and so on. Instead of having every finger with a little control, they just added these general objects to say if you want to control the fingers, just select this node. Here you have another rig where obviously they up the value on wire thickness, even though it's there's something aesthetically clean about this. It's still a big cluster of nodes, and I guess with layers you can hide the stuff that you don't need at the time. Like all of these individual little tiny ones are just to make a bendy arm, so you probably don't need that on the majority of the like at least in certain passes of your animation. Maybe at the final passes where you just need to make little adjustments to tighten elbows and have some of the skin collapse and so on. And then you have like the finger controls are on the outside of the fingers. That at least that's easy to find. This is a pretty good overall. It's good, but it's still like I mentioned, it's very visually cluttered. These I've seen rigs like this one a million times. The visual language is not very consistent. There's a lot of bespoke shapes that are difficult to understand. But I've seen quite a few of these. This one's clean, but frankly, it's sometimes you lose things, and I would want to have something that shuts off this off while I press play and see it. Like this one, clearly they went a little too crazy creating custom shapes and so on. The thing with this is that it's probably there's an element of trying to impress you with all the controls that are in the rig, so that's probably a thing here that's going on. When I see this, I figure, okay, there's some really good stuff in here. Like the arms are clearly in FK and the legs are clearly IK controls, so at least there's a visual language there where square things mean FK, round things mean IK for the most part, and you have a couple of other things that are at least very easy to understand. And they have a very special kind of gear thing where they stand on top of. So we've looked at a number of these, so we get the idea that this is kind of what you would expect in a Maya rig for the most part. Now, I just want to go real quick to Pixar and their approach. They use for animation, their main software isn't Maya, as some of you might know. There's always people going, "Oh, everybody uses Maya in the industry," and that's really not the case. But in the case of Presto at Pixar, they have this thing where they get rid of the clutter on the rig. Here, I'll play it for real quick, and you can select. See, you can select bones by simply selecting in that area. And if you watch to the end of this video, I'm actually going to provide you with a tool like that in Maya that'll allow you to do this kind of stuff. In fact, I've provided a GPU accelerated a shape that allows you to customize your rig more performantly, because splines are actually like I mentioned, it's probably one of the worst things you can give Maya to draw, and we're abusing it, so not really a good idea. You want to have good frame rates, which is actually the whole point of this video, where they take advantage of GPU acceleration to do fur and stuff like that. And that's, you can still nowadays with Maya. This was before all the changes for multi-threading and for GPU acceleration was in Maya, so the things have gotten a lot better. But for the most part, let's just talk about what you get out of the box with Maya. Here we have joints. Also, by the way, when I'm rigging, I'd like to remove, if I go to the little gear with the guy running, and you go to that's the options for animation, or the time slider, but it opens up the preferences very quickly, and then I can go into selection. Let's see, here it is, selection, and say don't highlight children. The reason why I do that while I'm rigging is because there's a lot of selection specific things that are needed with constraints and such. And the last thing I want is to be selecting a parent node, some node, and then have all of its children highlight. It's very confusing. So while you're doing rigging, it's best to deactivate that. When you're animating, I switch it back on. So because it's kind of handy to know all the all the children node that are going to be affected by that hierarchy change, or that hierarchy animation. Anyways, I go through that in other videos, but for the most part now we're just focusing on the visual aspect of our rig. So we also have locators. Locators are great. You might want to change their colors and such. The only problem with the locator is that it's root node, and I go through this in a lot of other videos. If you look at shapes here in the outliner, you'll see that its root node that deals with transformations is a transform node, and it's not like a joint. A joint is different, so you might want to maybe transfer the visual from this onto a joint. So if I were to, here, I'll explain, and I even have a button that does it instantly. So I just click it and boom, there it is. But I'm going to create a joint, and this goes for any object in Maya. So even meshes, anything, splines, whatever. If you go to the Rigonomicon.com and go into the section called scripts, you will find that I have multiple scripts for being able to transfer shapes. So parent shape is one. Parent mesh shape is different. It's one of them is a world space, and then you have parent NURB shape. So I'll go over these now, what these differences are, and if you just copy paste what's in that, where I'll open it again. If you, let's say I go to parent NURB shape. Parent NURB shape just means it's going to take a NURB shape and parent it to a different object that might be more useful than a transform node, like a joint. So here's the code. It's very tiny, but the difference between this and maybe some other codes, some other scripts that you find online from other videos, is that I'm actually dealing with I'm making it so that it's world. So if you click on the little clipboard thing here, you can copy that, and you can bring it into your script editor. I clicked on the little there's a like a semicolon. It's right below the little man running away from a gear. You can create a Python tab. You paste what you just copied, and I recommend turning that into a button if you're going to be using it often. I'm just going to make this as small as I can. And all I'm going to do is, and this one's for NURB, so I'll create a shape like, let's say NURB primitives circle. So let's say I want to add this circle to this joint because I want to be able to select it from far away. I would, well, you know what? I'm doing it by eye here. Let's be a little bit more accurate. If I try to match it, if you go to modify, match transformations, match all, I'm going to do both translation and rotation so that it snaps to it. Oh, you're going to find that it is now snapped and not in a way that is helpful. We want it to be like in the middle of the X. So I'm just going to press J and use the snaps to go up 90 degrees. That should do it. Actually, I went too far. Oop. And now I can translate along its it's still not. Hang on a second. All right, so I didn't snap right. But anyways, you get the idea. Let's say you get to this point. Also, I have history off, so I can't control the radius of it because I like things to be collapsed without any extra stuff going on. And what you can do is you can then go control vertex. I'm not going to actually select it with a window because you may accidentally select other things and you lose your object. So I'm just going to go select all through here. And now I can change the scale of it. For those of you that are going, oh, you're using scale. No, it's the shape, the vertice position that's being scaled, not the actual transform. So it's fine to do it this way. So now you have this circle, and you want to attach it to something like a joint that's properly aligned. Please look at the other videos for how to align things. And all I want to do is transfer that to the joint here. And this is better than adding a constraint. Adding constraints where you constrain things, first you have to deal with another hierarchy. And then the other problem is you're adding a constraint. It's a calculation for nothing. If you can parent things, always parent it. So because I have display shapes available, that curve, when I select it, has a subnode. This is not another object. It's just the shape. If I select that, and then multi-select the object I want to transfer it to, I'll be able to transfer directly. And the difference between mine and most of those that you see online is that because it's relative, it'll snap to the exact. It'll lose the alignment that we have here and that placement that we've done. So what I do here is when I run this, I press enter on the keypad. And now the two have been combined. Oh, wait, you got to wait for PyML to load. And now if I click on this circle, you're actually selecting the joint itself. So it is one and the same. This is probably the most efficient you can do out of the box for Maya because it's first of all, it's technically a parenting. You're adding this shape back to this joint. The joint is still the thing that you're animating, so you don't have constraints, you don't have anything else. And then the only problem I have with it is, first of all, it's a circle. Circles are still curves, and Maya has some trouble with that. If you put enough of them in the scene, you can do a really quick test. Make thousands of circles, take a look at your frame rate when you animate them, and then do the exact same thing with like a locator or a joint. You'll notice that the frame rate drops. And that's an easy test to do. So, anyways, I might do that just for fun, just to show. Maybe it's improved. I don't know, but generally, I avoid using splines, even though that's kind of what everybody uses in Maya. And the other thing is that you can, like I was setting up here, I wanted to transfer this over here, so that would be not a NURB, but just a normal shape. So in this case, I would use the more traditional, let's see, parent shape. So this is the one that quite often you find on a lot of tutorials. It's something similar to that. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to transfer the visuals of this locator onto this this joint so that we change its transform like parent. So if I look at this, the shape of that transform, see, look, if I turn off shapes, there's just locator. If I turn on shapes, I can see the locator still there and it's transform. And then you have something underneath it, which is the shape. It's not another object. It's just a sub part of that object. If I select that and I click on the joint, and then I run this new script that I just copied, and then I run it by pressing enter on the keypad. Because it's relative, it will make it snap to the basically the transform that's there because it's the relative to its transform. If I select now this joint, it looks like, and we can make it even we can fool we can get more covert with this. Instead of drawing the style of the bone as bone, you say none, and now you can't really tell the difference between this joint and this locator and a traditional locator. The only main difference is if you look at it, it's got all the stuff that a joint has, and this means that you can use this for IK. You can use this for even skinning if you wanted to. It can be part of your skin. Something you cannot do with anything that has a transform node. So we're starting to have a lot of these like lonely transforms. You should be deleting those because once you've stripped away their visuals, you can use it. You can discard it, and then now you have your super visual and all that. So if another thing I would say is if you're creating things with shapes, uh, like for example, if I wanted to create nerd primitive square, I really can't stand this one because each individual side is now like if I try to select this, yeah, sure, but this is not useful to me. This is not what I want. If I wanted an actual square, what I would do is I would go create curve tools and make sure the options are open. Make sure it's on linear so we don't have any curves, and that's actually an optimization already right there. I'm going to press X to snap to the grid. I'm going to do that, and presto, we have this lovely lovely setup now for it's a single object, a single curve, and now we can transfer that to anything that we want. So we could add it to this one, and so on, the same way that we did the circle. So far so good. The only other thing that I would also mention is you might want to change the colors because by default they're very drab, not really great. And keep in mind that wire color can be inherited. So if you change the color of this, all of them will change. But thanks to the fact that this is a subnode that no one's inheriting from, so if I go to the actual shape by using this to expose that, I can change its color. And here I'll show you a really easy way to do that. You have this thing called wireframe color. Brings you this little window. It doesn't have a lot of colors. I'm going to probably make a new version of this with more colors that are traditional for rigging. You can say, okay, this one I wanted to be yellow. So now it's a yellow circle, and because there was no child nodes from the shape onward, it will just change the color here. So if I did that for this one, let's say I turn that to orange, you're going to see that because there's a concept of inheritance, they actually inherit the color. And you'd have to override this thing again so that it has its own color. Here, I'll make it more obvious. So now you have that color with the aside from what it inherited from all the parent. You can override that individually. So using stuff like this, you can make your rig a lot easier to understand. You create your shapes, and you could do it that way. So now I'm going to show you another method that I would use. These plugins, the plugin in particular is what I have here for like most of the stuff that I've been doing is all up here. So it's nice to have. If they're not available yet, it will be like the stuff that I'm setting up. It should be available soon. It has all kinds of other things other than visuals, but for this topic, this particular rigging basics, this is going to come in handy. So if I create, let's say I create it like this, and instead of using splines and all that, I want to use one of my internal tools. And if you have this, then you can select all these and say add a with the exception of the last node here, we don't really need that one because that's just for how joints are displayed, and that's not a real node that we're going to be using in our rig. So if I click on that, now I've converted all of them into this object, which if I don't show the shapes, they're still the same object. See, the last one didn't get affected, and it added like these little bacon strips. That's because the rig is called bacon strip. Long story short, it's a homonym because it's not just strips of bacon. It's because the rig is for baking and stripping away rigs and baking animation and so on. Anyways, so it comes with a shape that gives you a lot of visual options. So if, for example, I'm just going to make a duplicate of this one, and I'll get rid of this thing here, and I'll just show you this all zeroed out. And actually, it's not just that; it's also got. So if I bring this over here, and it's got the joint orient values. I go through that in detail in a number of videos. So I'm not going to go over that right now. Let's just say this is a default object, and it has that shape now attached to it from Bacon Strip. May not look like much, but you have a lot of stuff that you can do here with these kind of these nodes. So if you wanted to, you could grab these. I think this works, and you can just go, I want capsules type of thing. And now you have capsules, and you can change as well how each end, so that you can change it so that it's easy to understand, and you can connect them like that. And then now if you rotate stuff, it's easy to understand what the shape is, and you have options of how they're how they are working visually. Actually, I'm going to delete this because it's annoying me. So I'm just going to create actually a quick one, so we can keep showing you these options, and also just have one that's all by itself. And I'm just going to do that. I'm going to make sure it's at 0, 0. And I'm going to change its shape scale, not its transform scale. So it's bigger. Okay. And I'm going to show you some of the other options that it has. So wire thickness is an option that's very useful. So if I put it to 2, like, you now have easier to understand shapes, and this is not like the option in Maya to change all wires. This is specific to just this one object. So that's already something you want to consider. So I'm just going to leave it at like something like 3, so we can see clearly. Like, now I bet you YouTube has no trouble compressing this. You can also change the wire visibility. So let's say you want it 50% transparent. Now they're slightly transparent, so they're less annoying. But we're going to keep them bright. And then the solid visibility, if you wanted to, you could set it to 1. So it's a solid object as well. You can make it very light, like just a 3% transparency. Mirroring is very handy to have, so you can switch which, like if you've done the mirroring tutorial, you'll understand why this is here. It's so that the shape can flip to the other side very easily. The X-ray mode is pretty standard. So let's say I go file, create, create polygon. I'm going to make a sphere with options. Make sure it's got a radius, I don't know, 5. Apply. So we've got this object here. And if I can put it in here, and then I grab this guy, by default the X-ray is on. But if you don't want to see through things, this is really handy, because if you have something that's like on the floor, you might want to turn X-ray off, and that'll make it easier for you to understand where it is in space. And then you have the Presto mode. If you turn it on, it's just like that video we saw. Only when you click in a specific area will it show you its object. So you can hide all of your controls on your character as long as they're good solid volumes, and just have it so that it so when you select it, it will highlight the object. And that's out of the box. I called it the Presto mode for obvious reasons. And I'm going to turn the X-ray back on, because now this is very handy for us when we have a skinned object and so on. So the other things that I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through quickly the other kinds of shapes. Like you're probably thinking, well, that's a nice cube, and the capsules were interesting, but that's not. I want circles. Well, you've got circles, and it's a solid circle or a see-through circle, depending if you make the solid visibility invisible. And there you go. And it's aligned through the X as well. So for example, if I grab this guy and I say I want you to be a circle, you'll see that it created the circle, and then you just do local position X because everything is X aligned. Boop, and there you go. It's in the right place. And then this one you could make it so that, like I said, solid visibility. And then because you want to be able to see it clearly, you put it to 3 or something. Now that bone is easy to find. You select it, and now you have easy controls. This makes life a lot easier. Also, this is being drawn by the GPU and it's not a spline, so that's nice. Other things that you can do with it is, you've got squares. There's nothing very exciting here. You've got cylinders. You had the capsules that I showed before. Or the cylinder also works the same way, where you can change the length and change one side and not the other by just doing this. It has a couple of built-in features for that. I'm just going to set it back to like a square shape type of thing. It's got the radius is the same as its length. If you go to a locator, you have a locator now. This is a GPU accelerated locator, so it's very easy to use. It's helpful for a lot of reasons. I've got a loop. This is great for IK. This is very useful and very easy to understand what it is. You've got the disk, so you can put that on the ground type of thing, and that becomes your root node. Easy to spot, easy to select, because like a lot of these root nodes, you have to go in and do a little marquee select on the edge. Here, you can just click in the inside of that. Nice and easy. I'm just going to bring it back up. You've got ring. So this is different than a circle because it has a little bit more width. This is actually very handy for a number of things. You have a plus sign. So if what we saw in those images, where they had, let's like, if I bring it back up, you'll see that sometimes they have these little, these visual languages of objects that you're like, what does that do? And it's probably like this thing is probably an up vector. Maybe this one over here, you click it and it's got like properties. So a lot of times I've seen that plus sign comes in handy. Another one that's very common, I've seen this one for like things to point at in a rig. I've got other things that you can use to do that. You've got the 4-way. This is something quite common, and here it makes it easy to apply to any place you want, and you can change the colors very easily. So if I go to, I guess, modify, nope, display wire color, I'm looking forward to changing that. And I'm just going to change it so that it's really bright, like the yellow, right? And I can change its scale very easily. This is very optimal. And you have other, if you even have the ability to do stuff like this, where I'm actually going to get rid of the thickness here, just bring it down to a normal one. This, if you want to have a special a shape for a head, this makes it very easy to select. And if you do the Presto approach, you can say, let's see here, that's the scale, that's this, that's here. We want it to be a little bit wider. And remember, these scales do not affect the node; it's just visual. And you can make it so that the solid visibility is set to 0. Sorry, to 0.03, and get rid of the wire visibility actually. And then if you had the Presto mode on, it becomes very Presto-like, where it has a shape that it makes more sense to you, and you can put that inside your character, inside like as the bone for the head, and you'd be able to select it very easily, just like Presto. And you have a whole bunch of different shapes here for a specific things, like the pelvis, for example. Actually, I'm gonna quickly move it down because I know that a pelvis points in a different direction. So this is an easy way of getting a pelvis that is easier to understand. And you have a lot of these specific shapes that are available, and you'll notice it has the prefix CS. That's because most of these shapes are coming from another software that was called 3 Studio Max, where we had something called Character Studio. And as much as I hated that thing, because you can actually rig in Max without it, like very easily, in fact. That for whatever reason everyone kept using Character Studio, and it has its benefits. I understand that, but it made a lot of riggers lost their jobs because they thought they could be replaced, and that's where you get Assassin's Creed, where you have the original Assassin's Creed. They had horses which were two bipedal characters looking at each other because they didn't know how to rig the horse. They had to use Character Studio because that's all they were using, and they replaced all the riggers. So Karma has a funny way of getting back at them. But as far as I'm concerned, you know what? The shapes that they had for the different body parts were handy. So I brought them in here so that we can make it easier for selections. And I mean that covers a lot of ground. I mean, you with this you should be able to do quite a bit for your visuals in your rig. And the other thing that's missing here is something I'll be adding later, which is to be able to draw a line between 2 points to show like an up vector and stuff like that. But for the most part, with this alone, you should be able to get a lot of stuff done. All right, so that covers visuals quite a bit. It's longer than I was expecting, but there was a lot to talk about. Hopefully, I didn't go too fast. Good thing it's a video and you can rewind. Uh, so basically, if you're using Maya out of the box, most people what they do is they use splines and then just attach them with like the scripts that I showed you for at least there's some optimization there. But if you're using the Bacon Strip plugins, you will have a lot more options that are much more optimal with a lot more going on. So yeah, so that's it for visuals. Hopefully your rigs will be easier to understand after you've built them, and other people that are using your rigs will be able to understand what does what. Thank you, and have a great day.